Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome back to the garage. It's Mike here, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our new series, Talkin' Shift. The first episode here today is with my good friend Tim. He's the owner of Piston Society Motorcycle Shop, and I think you're really going to enjoy listening to some of Tim's musings and getting to hear about how he brought his shop to life, some of the inspiration that helped bring that shop to life, and then just a little bit about everyday life as a motorcyclist like you and I. And so we're going to take a trip down to Piston Society and listen to what Tim has to say. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Before we get started, I want to ask you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified whenever we put out new episodes. And let's get into it.
My name is Tim Burke. I'm the owner of Piston Society Motorcycle Shop here in Cincinnati, downtown historical Over the Rhine neighborhood. Piston Society came about, after seeing all these other shops that were similar to this in other cities, and I've always had an addiction to nice gear and maybe more stylish gear, things like that, and you just couldn't find a lot of that in this area. So I think when I saw those kind of places in other cities, it made me think, maybe we should have something like that in Cincinnati. The selection of gear in the shop, it actually came from the Built-Well vintage-looking helmets, and nobody in the region was selling that. I like that brand. But then our very first year of setting up the Garage Brewed Motorcycle Show, out of the blue, after a couple press releases about it, the Revit folks called me up, and their marketing director, Tracy Modes, calls me and wanted to be a sponsor of the show. I didn't know who Revit was, so I had to look them up as she's on the phone with me. Who is this, And then I saw their gear. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can be a sponsor. So getting to know them that very first year and seeing the quality of their gear and their passion for it as well, the styling, everything like that, I knew that when I started the shop that was one of the brands I wanted to be a dealer for. So my day job, I was running my own software business at the time, had a really good year, had some extra money to spend at the end of the year. Otherwise I was gonna give it to Uncle Sam, who we all know Uncle Sam's just gonna take that money and spend it on, hookers and blow and $400 hammers and bombs over Baghdad. So I asked my CPA, I was like, could I buy some motorcycles and then rent them out? I'm thinking in my own head, I get to ride these motorcycles, so that's gonna be great, Sure, you can do that. So along with renting motorcycles, hey, I'll get some gear, I'll get some helmets, some of those brands that I like that you can't find here, and sell that, maybe some t-shirts, that sort of thing. We were already a dealer for Zero and took on Benelli as another brand. So it's just kind of expanded and rolled, all starting from that one good year with the software company. Zero motorcycles. I had seen them years ago at Mid-Ohio. They were doing demo rides, and it was amazing that these bikes were almost silent. You could hear the rubber of the tires as people were doing figure eights, but they weren't really on my radar. I was doing a motorcycle ride down the Pacific Coast Highway with a buddy, spending 17 days with just like hammock camping, and every night we didn't know where we were staying. We were just trying to make our way down the coast. Brilliant trip. Along the way, I realized, hey, Zero Motorcycles is headquartered out here and they're not far off the PCH. Let's stop and visit and see if we can get a tour. At the time, I'd already started Piston Society. We were already doing motorcycle rentals. And so my mind was thinking, buy a Zero, put it in the fleet. It could be an exotic, interesting rental. And of course, I get to ride it, so that's fantastic. We stopped, met their team, wonderful people. They gave us a tour of the factory. They took us out for demo rides on the bikes. And I have a photo of myself as I'm still on the bike after finishing a ride, and the smile on my face, kind of says it all. And it's the same smile I see on everyone's face when they take their first demo ride here. And so then I started thinking, I don't want to just buy one for the fleet. I want to be a dealer. And so there were no dealers in this area, and it all worked out. I'm very happy I did that. It's, again, another point of differentiation, a unique product, unique industry, premium product. And I get to ride all of the Zeros, which is fantastic. Just rode one this morning. And it's interesting. They're a really great company. They've been growing the whole EV industry as well as the motorcycles. They've been growing every year and getting more and more market share. The product has improved. They make more motorcycles in a year than all the other electric manufacturers combined. So it's a mature product that's made for riding today. They make it easy. One of the other dealers up in Cleveland, Phil Waters with Cleveland Moto, he once said, if you can't work with Zero, you can't work with any brand, because they make it that easy. I'm like many motorcyclists that I have more than one bike and I like more than one style of riding. And electric motorcycles is just yet another style of riding. I don't think that electric vehicles are going to replace gas vehicles anytime soon, at least not completely. I think the electric market is growing, so it'll be a bigger market share for them than what they have now. And I think there will be a lot more new riders that will come in as electric riders rather than they would a gas bike. But I still love my vintage gas bikes. I have dozens, and that's not going anywhere. But I also have an electric bike, and I love that as well. So I think you're gonna find that it's good to have a nice gas bike right now for long rides, and then have an electric bike for everything else. And you probably find that you'll ride that more than you would your gas bike. But I'm a fan of antiques. I'm a fan of collecting old things and keeping knowledge alive. And I think vintage motorcycles is just an extension of that. When I was a young boy, my father had bought a Harley Davidson 125 Scrambler back in probably 1974, 75. And I was too small and too young to ride it at the time, so I was always on the back. But eventually I became big enough to ride the bike and learned to ride off-road. And then later in life, I wrecked a buddy's brand new Kawasaki. And so at that point, I decided, maybe I should set motorcycles aside for a while. I had a pretty girlfriend, and I was in school and working as a photographer. So I set motorcycles aside until my late 30s, and at a buddy's prodding, who wanted somebody to ride with, he convinced me to get a motorcycle and ride again, this time on street primarily. So off and on, early in life and now late in life. Yeah, I've introduced other people into motorcycling in maybe in a couple different ways. I founded the Cincinnati Cafe Racer Club maybe 12 years ago, and we've hosted a lot of events, bike nights, social events, bring people together, help build community. And through several of those experiences, we've met people who have then gotten into motorcycles. But then also my nieces, as young girls, out in the country, same place that I learned to ride a dirt bike when I was young, we've taught them to ride quads, which back in the 70s they didn't have quads. They had the three-wheel, off-road bikes, which would flip and kill you. But we start these young girls as young as 6 on small Chinese little quads to get them to learn how to stop and steer and control a bike. And they'll just run circles, in the fields until they kind of learn and get it. And if you don't pull them out off the fields, they'll run late into the night. So they'll just go for hours. They love it. And now that some of them are older, once they get to where they're big enough to be able to reach the brakes on a bigger bike and learn how to ride that, we'll put them on the next size up, like a 325cc Polaris automatic. And then we can take them up into the woods and up onto the trails and really show them how to ride a bike properly. Then as the girls have gotten older, put them on 2 wheels, little dirt bikes and things like that out in the country. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I do a combination of riding. I probably spend more time street riding than anything, just because it's right out my back door here. And I love to get out of the city and hit the country roads. We're blessed here in this area with the river valley of having a lot of great country roads nearby. So you can get out for an hour or 2 and really hit some fun twisty roads and see some neat stuff. I still ride off-road, at the same cabin in the woods that we have out near Athens, Ohio. And we do some dirt riding out there. So yeah, I ride a little bit of both, and it just depends. I like to do long road trips as well. I'm trying to plan something out west for this year. Probably another backroads discovery route. We did the Mid-Atlantic BDR last year during COVID, where we took 7 people, and by the end of it we had 3 left. A couple crashed out, some of them just begged out, but it was a lot of fun, and that's a combination of road and Forest Service roads, a little bit of off-road, so it was a good trip. Everyone has a favorite bike, right? Mine is my 1972 BMW. It's an R60/5, so that makes it a 600cc bike. I bought this probably 7 years ago or so, and I had always wanted an Airhead, a classic BMW. I just love the look of that black bike, and this one has a nice chrome toaster tank. And over the years, I've done some work to it. It was in disrepair when I first bought it, and so I learned a lot about the BMWs, far different from the Hondas and such that I had owned in the past. And I'm trying to keep it primarily stock, but I also have a little better carburetors on it, some Mikunis, and I've got electric ignition on it, which really kind of help smooth out the bike. It idles really nicely. The Mikunis really woke up to 600. It was very anemic little Bing carburetors, and now it's a fast bike. The worst thing about it is probably the drum brakes. You got to plan in advance for braking and ride a little more cautiously. But that's my favorite. What does motorcycling mean to me? I think motorcycling is freedom. Motorcycling is travel. Motorcycle is exploration. Taking a Saturday afternoon sometimes for small little mini explorations and just finding some country road you've never been down before. And inevitably, you see that little dirt road and you pause, like, I wonder what's down that way, right? So it's such a relaxation for me. It's such a way to block out stress and stop thinking about my day-to-day life and things like that. Or sometimes to think about it. If you're just hitting a country road and you're just in the groove and maybe you're working through some issues, in your head. At its core, that's what motorcycling is to me. But then a little bit above that is the friends you make, the people you ride with, that community that gets built around it. I've met some of the nicest people, and I've broadened my circle of acquaintances and friends through motorcycling. And I've been the better for it. And so I think it just brings so many benefits. But at its core, it's that freedom of being able to just go travel and explore. I love that aspect of motorcycling. I have Piston Society, which is my passion project, the motorcycle shop, but I also have a day job, which is not the motorcycle shop, and that's an IT-based job, and so I do travel quite a bit there. Whenever I'm in another city, I'll often just Google motorcycle shops and try and find something that's unique, not the Beltway power sports store, which we're all familiar with, but something that's a little more authentic and kind of mom and pop, something more interesting. And often in each city, there's at least that one shop that's like that, right? And so I recall just before COVID, probably in 2019, I was in Boston for work and had an hour or two to kill before going to the airport to fly home. Googled motorcycle shops and found one with this photo on Google of a young lady pushing a vintage bike into a garage space. So I thought, let's check this out. Took a while to find, kind of off in a neighborhood, and I walk in and there are hundreds of motorcycles in here, even up on shelves, which is, I think, her personal collection. And I didn't know this person, but she stopped what she was doing, walked over, talked to me, showed me around. She had some really cool builds that she was doing, some custom builds, and she had some builds from various well-known national, global builders there in her shop, and really cool vintage bikes. And she showed me a Indian that she was working on at the moment. It was probably halfway done, so it had some really cool fabbed foot pegs and things on it, and she was telling me how she was going to cut the tank and put a shifter through the center of the tank, for a hand shifter. Sweetheart of a person to take time out from doing her day job working on a customer's bike to talk to me. Gave me a free t-shirt, it just really made me a fan. Well, I didn't know who she was initially, but it turns out she is also very well known throughout the country. Joshia is her name, with Madhouse Motors in Boston. And it was kind of an inspiration to me. Other shops in New York City and Union Garage and places like that, and Jane's Motorcycles, different shops like that you find. And I'd always wondered why we didn't have something like that here in Cincinnati. There were brands of gear that I liked that you just can't find locally. And so it kind of inspired me to later do Piston Society and somewhat model myself after what I saw there. And the same thing with the Garage Brewed Motorcycle Show that the club puts together. I saw that happening at the One Moto Show and the Handbill Show and Mama Tried Show in Milwaukee, and thought, why can't we do that here? And so eventually we did, and hugely successful and a lot of fun. And but I think when you travel, you are open to new experiences, and you broaden your horizons and thought process and get inspired. And so I love to combine, even if it's work travel, combine that with motorcycles. It's true, there's a lot to juggle. You have your personal life at home with your wife and your dog or your kids. I have an aging mother that we're taking care of and that sort of thing. There's all these things outside of work. I have wonderful staff that help me manage all of this, which is fantastic, and I can rely on them. And little Siggy, she's often here with me when I'm working. Little shop dog, she'll come at you when you come in the door. She wants to let you know that she's there, but she's a sweetheart. And it's kind of fun having a dog-friendly motorcycle shop. A lot of our employees will bring their own pets in, and I think most people enjoy that, except the mailman occasionally. But a work-life balance is important, and it's no different for me than it is for someone else who has their own business. And so time management is always an issue, making sure you put family first. So some days I'm like, hey, I got no coverage, I can't work it because I've got family stuff, we'll just close the shop. And it sucks for that day, but you got to have your priorities. And as grand as all this is, family does come first. And so it's an interesting balance sometimes, and but it's such an enjoyable thing. I really enjoy running the shop and the people I meet, and customers as well as people in the industry and employees and such. It's a good time. So yeah, we started the garage nights, so to speak. So here at the shop we did a wrench and learn, where we'd invite everyone in and have some food and snacks, but we'd take a project bike and do various projects to kind of do knowledge sharing. None of us are experts, but we all have a certain amount of knowledge that we can depart to others. So we took an old CB360. The first day we talked about the project, and then we tore it all apart. Bagged all the pieces up into baggies, marked everything, got it ready to send the frame out for powder coating over to Killer Customs in Newport, which does a great job. We started getting all the parts to rebuild, relace the wheels and Buchanan spokes and that sort of thing. But it's fantastic because it brings people together in the evenings. A lot of people ride to the event, they can make new friends, they learn something, we learn from each other, and accomplish something in the end. And the goal is to rebuild this bike and then donate it or raffle it off for charity. COVID has thrown a wrench in the works in that we can't bring people together like that. And so the project is somewhat frozen and on hold and still sits over here in the shop gathering a little dust. I've also considered another option though, and that is there is an organization in Cleveland that teaches young kids kind of shop skills, shop class skills, by doing small engine repair using CB350s. And I have a lot of spare pull-offs and frames that are untitled and things like that they'd like to have. And I've also considered, donating this to them as well. Still goes to that same goal of donating the project bike, just in a different way. And then someday when we're ready to do Wrench and Learns again, we'll pick another project. So I'm not sure how that'll work out, but either way, it'll be for a good cause and community is still served. Yeah, so at Piston Society, you can reach us online at pistonsociety.com, our website. You can always hit us up on the contact page, and there's location and directions and even where to park, that sort of thing is on there. Our hours, which are sometimes a little flexible. Social media, Facebook, Instagram. Whenever we're doing events, rides, things like that, you'll find it on our event calendar as well as on the event page at Facebook. And then always call us. You can text us. I've done video walk-arounds on bikes that people are interested in buying to help them make their decisions, if they can't make it into the shop. But sometimes just stopping in and grabbing a soft drink out of the fridge, hanging out in the lounge, talking to our staff, and checking out what's new. That's the best way to experience it.